resources and the more people move and live in cities and have more money to spend, the more they have access to the same products that Americans have. And so it becomes a global problem. And so I think she was thinking already, you know, I have a main audience, but I want to make sure that this is not excluding others. Which is, I think, is important when you're designing a message. I think when we talked about, when Anne was presenting the smart chart, we don't want to generalize our audience, we want to have our specific audience and know our audience. That doesn't mean that our message should exclude others. You can design your message to be specifically designed for your audience, but open enough that others can receive the message and you can talk to them. Any other audience? Did you hear something? The government. Yes, the government. True. Even though it criticizes the government a lot. And when you think about it, the voters, the citizens, and the decisions they can make by through their vote. So why don't we move on to the message? And when we talked about the goal of the video, you shared a little bit of the message, but is there anything else that you want to share on what the message of the video is? What is she trying to tell us? Besides changing our perspective and the sort of the thesis or the paradigm and helping us think in a different way, when I finish watching this, what am I taking with me that's going to help me act?
其实消费者是握有改变这个事情的的钥匙，因为唯有消费者改变行为，才能改变这一切。
Yes, that's great. Consumers have the power to change through our purchasing decisions. We can support a company based on their practices, and we can punish other companies by not supporting them, by not buying their products. And not only through the things we purchase, but also through letters that we write and other ways. We have a voice and we can use it. Consumers have the power. Companies, especially corporations, they'll say, you know, it's all about the bottom line and it's all about the shareholders. So the only way you can make a company be responsible is if the consumers care about those issues and let the company know. All right, is this a successful messaging tool? Is there anyone here, raise your hand if you think this is not successful or effective. Raise your, yeah. And Anne, why?
I would want to know if the rates of consumption changed at all before and after this video went viral, if there's been any difference to make a decision whether or not it's successful or not.
Good, good. So we don't measure of success. We don't really know, just by looking at the video. We can find some indication that there's some elements of it that are effective communication methods, but we cannot truly measure just by looking at it if it's being effective or not. We need data. And even if there's data, how can we directly point it at the video? How can we know that it is because of the video and not something else? Yeah?
Mine is similar. I think that you could test whether or not people understand the concept, but whether or not that translates into action, I think would need to be measured to see if it was really effective, if that was her objective.
That's correct. That's correct. I'm not sure if they actually did that, if they invested any resources in trying to measure that. All right. Yes. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say also, when teachers are sharing it with their students, often students are not making the purchasing decisions for their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, there's different measures of success. There's the success that you get from a message going viral. If what you want is people to see it and to receive the message, you succeeded at that level. You might not be succeeding or knowing if you're succeeding at the ultimate goal of people acting in a different way or change of behavior, but at least you succeeded in that level. And then there's the level of success of the people who are actually the target audience. Are they actually processing it? And it's changing their views. And then there's the level of success that has to do with action.
这一个影片在台湾有很多老师拿来教学，国小也有，国中也有。他们教学的内容是想要针对社会领域，就是对于他们的生活有一些影响或是改变。然后我们在教学的最后的结果呢，只能够了解，就是我们的学生对这个影片看完之后，他们是不是有觉得过度的消费，然后还有很多的垃圾，制造很多的垃圾，这样是不应该。但是没有办法跟他们的生活经验连接在一起。而且我们影片中在讨论的很多自然原料，他们这个开发的行为以及剥削的劳工的行为，距离学生的生活真的很远，以至于虽然看得懂那个意思，但是当下要去影响或是发起行动，没有那么的直接。那我后来发现说，这个影片有一个很棒的效果是，它出现之后，影响了台湾，制作了很多类似的，但是更简化的影片。比如说选择海鲜，我们如何比较有永续的选法，或者是选择绿色消费，我们在注意产品应该要什么样子的制成或是消耗。这个部分在后续就有不同题材的影片，反而更简单、更精确，然后更特定去设定到我们想要他了解而且去行动的部分。以上分享，谢谢。
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so there are different levels of success and different measures of success. It's very interesting to hear that it is being used in Taiwan. Again, I think that there is value in seeing a message going viral this way, even if we're not seeing or we cannot measure the final outcome. And the other piece is that when something like this happens, it generates enough support and buzz, or it becomes such a thing online that you have copycats, you have other organizations doing similar types of videos, which tells you a lot about the power of the message.
Yesterday we talked about a skill being transferable, and I think this is an example of we could see how we see a template of how, or an example of how to make a video that could go viral. And so we now know an example of a successful way to communicate. But we can take that part of it and then add something of our own that actually can measurably change behavior. So although we want to bridge that gap, we don't just want it to go viral, we also want behavior to change. So we can take what does work and then add more ingredients.
Thank you. And I think that when I hear you say this, it makes me reflect on some of the different tools that we presented in the last couple of days. For example, storytelling. Did you see any of the ideas around storytelling presented here? So, this is not a lecture. This is not a documentary. It's called The Story of Stuff for a reason, because it's telling you a story. And it's using a little bit of humor. And the fact that we're all sitting here and we're giggling, even though it's a very depressing video. And the fact that at the end, you could ask, and maybe that's a question for you, in the schools here in Taiwan, if students look at this video, can you ask them to explain what they learned, and can they repeat the general idea? And they probably can. I showed it to my kids, and this is anecdotal, this is not data, but I showed it to my kids when they were younger. And not only they understood it, my son was depressed for a couple of days. But since then, he changed his behavior, and he's also been the person in our household who reminds us, why do you want to buy that? Do you really need it? Why do we need another TV? He's the one who's telling us that. And it's a pain in the head. But see, even though we make the decision, he's reminding us, and he makes us stop and think. Hey, maybe I don't need that. I should have thought of that when I got my Apple Watch, by the way. Anyways. Sorry, Elisa. I actually love this thing. I love it. I love it.
Is it okay if I share my perspective working at Apple? Okay. So, I've been watching this video for 8 years, and I've worked at Apple for 3 years. And the reason why I went to Apple is because I wanted to learn how environmental education could be as successful as Apple, which has the strongest brand in the world. And please don't put this online because I could get fired.